I'm Charlotte McLeod with the Investing News Network, and here today with me is E.B. Tucker, Director at Metalla Royalty and Streaming, and author of the new book, Why Gold, Why Now? Thanks so much for being here online with me today.
Thanks for having me, Charlotte.
Great. So we are here to talk about your new book, which just came out. As I mentioned, it's called Why Gold, Why Now? I want to start by asking, how long has it been in the works for? Was it something you've had in mind for a long time, or was there a more recent trigger for writing it?
There was a recent trigger. Of course, everything that you read in the book is what I've put together over almost 2 decades in the gold business and as a professional money manager and newsletter writer. All these things that I walk through all of those pieces of the journey because I didn't grow up knowing these things about gold. I mean, my father is a really smart guy, but he owns a furniture store, so there's not much. It wasn't like I grew up in the gold business. You know, this is all things that I discovered starting in 2000, which is the first time I was acquainted with gold when it was about $240, $250 an ounce. And people said, well, why would you ever want to buy that? I mean, this makes no sense. So what happened with the book was, as you know, I'm a director at Metalla, helped found the company, and we've grown that company from maybe 10 or 12 million market cap to almost 300 million, and it's still growing very rapidly. And I'm very excited about the company. But Charlotte, a lot of people don't know how that all happened. And so in the book, I tell people how this happened. Now, you'll be surprised to know, and I say this in the first page or two, I wrote this book in 23 days. I mean, it's a 230 something page book, and I wrote it in 23 days. And what happened was I was with a friend who was asking me for advice about buying gold. And he had gone to his broker and asked to buy physical gold. And his broker said, if I do that, I'll lose my license. I just, all of a sudden, like a bolt of lightning, it hit me that there are millions of people that have no idea why they should buy gold. So the first part of the book is why gold, why it's important right now. So the second part is why now. And the third part is how to do it. And what we do and how to do it is we start out with how much gold should you have? So we kind of work out a little bit of a formula so you can figure out what's right for you. And then bars, coins, mining stocks, royalty companies, these are all things that you need to know about. Now, we don't go so far into the weeds that you're confused. We say, look, if you want to buy a gold coin, you know, there's only 3 that you should really buy. You really shouldn't be messing around with esoteric coins and massive amounts of collectible coins, and you shouldn't get involved in these things. If you don't have any gold and you want to buy gold, we're going to get you the right coin that you're not going to get in trouble buying it. You know, someone's not going to take advantage of you. That's the stuff you need to know. So when you read the book, if you have no knowledge about gold, by the time you finish reading the book, you're going to feel like you know enough to know exactly what you need to do for yourself, and you're not going to be confused. I mean, believe me, I wrote this book so that my friend, who's a very smart guy, but he knows little about gold, could have a handbook, a guide as to what to do as gold takes off over the next couple of years.
Okay, that's great. So obviously you wrote this very quickly in 23 days. You had everything in your head and it came, I just imagine it came pouring out. I want to ask if you can talk a little bit about your background in the gold space, how you got into it, how you built up this knowledge over 20 years that came out in this book.
Yeah, so in the introduction, I talk about what happened. I was telling you earlier that I first got introduced to gold in 2000. I did not buy it then. It was 4 more years before I bought my first ounce of gold. I think the price was maybe $350 to $400, somewhere in there, US per ounce, about that time. So I got some physical gold. I got some coins. I still wasn't really totally enmeshed into the industry at that time. I just had some. And then I walked people through in the introduction what happened, that during the '08 crash, I bought gold at $700 and silver at $9, and some mining stocks, and the mining stocks went just, when they went up like 500%, you know, and I was just completely stunned as to, well, how did this happen? And at the time I was writing a blog, and I was going to conferences, and that's where I met Brett Heath. And this is about going on over a decade ago now. And so Brett and I teamed up, and I had a money management background, and Brett's the best deal maker I've ever known, and is extremely good with diligence and detail and building models and all these things. So we teamed up and we started a fund. And so what we did is we thought we were the best at understanding the early stage kind of production mining business, and we traveled the world, looking at mines and reporting back to our clients, and we'd bring rocks from the mine and show videos, all this stuff. It was really fun, so we did that for several years. And so I kind of walk everyone through some of these stories. I mean, there's no better way to learn about the dangers of mining stocks than me telling you about being abandoned in Mexico, when we were down there to see a mine, and then Brett and I are standing there thinking, boy, I hope the plane comes. I mean, otherwise we're going to be sleeping out here, So we kind of tell some of these stories about, when you buy a mining stock, you need to really know what you're doing. Honestly, the advice is don't do it. A lot of times I explain also why we started Metalla, because we think there's no better business than the royalty business. We think it's the most lucrative business in the world. And it's also a lower risk way to play the gold business. And I think people need to understand what that means. It's one thing for me to just say that now, but we tell the story of Franco-Nevada, which started in the 80s. And it's a very interesting story. It's a very good story. And then we tell the story of Metalla. And again, I mean, I think when people are done, they're going to have insight into how this business works. And I think it's going to be invaluable in the coming years.
Okay, so intended audience for this book is obviously people who are new to gold. Do you think these people are ready to listen? Are they ready to hear about gold right now in this environment?
No, they're not. But they're close. And that's why the book had to come now, because you want this done, before this happens. But like my friend that asked me, by the way, my friend that asked you about this, he read the first draft of the book, and he bought a big chunk of Metalla stock, and then he bought a bunch of the gold coins that I recommend in the book. By the way, I named 3 dealers, gold coin dealers that I know. I name in the book with phone numbers, and then you can call them and tell them that you read the book, and they don't pay me any fee for doing that. I mean, some of them are going to give away the book to customers, but no one paid any money to be in the book. So I mean, this is for your benefit. Okay. So, but this guy read the draft and spent a 6-figure sum, taking his gold position, and had no understanding prior to reading the book. So the audience is a person who has saved money. I mean, because the secret to getting wealthy, Charlotte, is a very interesting secret. I'll tell you. You have to spend less than you earn and invest the difference. That's how you become wealthy. Most people, they miss that. Okay, so say you worked your whole life and you've been saving, and you have 401k, and you have all these, RRSP, all these things, okay? And you look around and you go, something's not right. I mean, the economy's been shut down for 3 months. Now there's riots and protests, and the windows are broken out of everything. Something is not right. I don't know what's not right, but it just doesn't seem right. And what am I supposed to do? And that's the point where people are now. But as we go into the summer, this is a weak time for gold right now. If you look at a chart of May, June, it's not usually a very strong time. So this is a chance for people to assess the situation and make decisions before we have another surge. Because if you look, you go from 1700 today to 1900, which is the old high, okay? And then you think, well, now I got to pay up for it. So that you have this time right now to prepare. And wise people know that you buy insurance before the fire, okay? Mm-hmm. You don't wait till after the fire and then say, well, can I get some insurance now? You can't do it. So now's the time to do it. And that's why the book had to happen quickly.
Okay, so what do you think is the main obstacle for people they're almost ready, they're not quite ready? What do you think is stopping them from jumping into the gold market?
Same thing that stopped Warren Buffett from doing it. I mean, he has a famous quote, which we reference in the book, about if anyone was watching from Mars, what people do with gold, they'd be scratching their head, because they think you dig it out of the ground, then you put it in another hole and put someone outside to guard it. It just makes no sense. Well, I mean, to some degree, he's right, because it doesn't make any sense if you have a regularly functioning capitalist system with a controlled monetary, monetary supervision is contained. And that was the case. Like in the 80s and 90s, there wasn't really much use for gold. I mean, you had interest rates slowly falling, and you had the economy in fairly good shape. The currency markets cooperated, outside of little blips in the mid 80s. It wasn't really a great time for gold. I mean, the thing to own was tech stocks, and the stuff was going on in the 80s in the corporate sector. This was the way to play it. But that's out the window. Now we have a situation where you created, $12 trillion globally to stimulate the world's economies during the virus situation. And people just said, well, that's normal. I mean, that's what we do now, right? But it's not normal. You can't just create this stuff out of nowhere. And we've been doing this for 20 years now. And so people are starting to realize that something's not right. I mean, I have 0% return at the bank. So what do I do? I mean, I can buy a treasury bond. I have a 0% or 50 basis points. I mean, do you know how much money you need to retire on 0.5% annual rate of return? I mean, you need like $1 billion. I mean, you just can't do it. And so people are starting to say, well, what do I do? Well, what they're doing is becoming speculators. So everyone's trying to speculate their way into achieving some sort of, stability in their life. Well, that's very dangerous. And what happens is a lot of times you bet wrong. So you don't go in there and put it all in red. I mean, it's just not the way to do it. And so we kind of assess the landscape, and that's part two. Why now? We say, like, look, this is what's gold. There will be a time to sell gold. I mean, that's the last chapter, when to sell, because gold's not a forever trade. I mean, you don't just buy gold and then the rest of your life you just say, well, I have this gold. I mean, maybe you have some gold. Okay, don't get me wrong, but there's a very hot period for gold. And it's a period when the value of other assets is in question. And that is now. And we're right on the edge of that. We're just starting it. I mean, if you're not involved in gold, you've missed the first inning. You've missed the first inning. I mean, you can definitely go to a baseball game in the second inning and you're going to catch plenty of action. You've missed the first inning in gold. And so now's the time to really focus and get involved.
So would that be the main takeaway for people who are new to gold, is now is the time to get in?
Look, there was no book for me, Charlotte. When I learned about gold, as I tell people, it was all trial and error. Mm-hmm. It was buying the wrong coin. Wow, I can't believe I did that. Okay, it was then buying the wrong stock and then figuring this out, and then how does this work, and what's a royalty company, and how do all these things come together? It was all a learning process, and I don't want people to see gold taking off and then suffer through that. I mean, look, gold ETFs. You have GLD, you have CEF, which is Sprots. I mean, you have all these different ones to choose from. Some of them have physical gold that they'll give to you. Some of them don't. So it's the haves versus the have-nots. I mean, why would you? I don't want people to have to waste time figuring that out. And I really don't want them to lose money figuring that out. It's unnecessary. There was no book when I was getting started. And so, let's think of this as a roadmap. I mean, that's really, I think, at the beginning of a journey, what you need is a roadmap. And each time you educate yourself, what happens is you know the next move. You know what to do next once you take that time and you create a base level of knowledge for yourself and have fun doing it. I mean, people should be laughing when they read stories about some of the things that Brett and I got into, the tangles, and some of the times where, I wouldn't advise my son to take this career path. It just makes no sense. I mean, there were times, it didn't make sense, but now it's beginning to make sense. The thread weaves through, 2 decades, and now it looks like a very well thought out plan, but it wasn't. It was all trial and error.
Right, and that kind of leads into my next question a little bit, which is, obviously you want people to read the book. They should read the book. What other resources would you recommend? What's the next step after that?
Well, Charlotte, just so you know, they can also listen to the book if they don't want to read, or so they don't have to read. So I think the next step after that is to start figuring out what does my world look like? I mean, what do I own, and what do I want to own as the world changes? What am I comfortable owning? I mean, if I have 100% tech stocks, am I happy with that? Am I happy with that? Or if I have a giant house, with a giant mortgage, am I happy with that? I mean, look at it on paper and see what do you you're the captain of the ship. Where is this thing going? And nobody ever stops and asks that. And you can do this in minutes. I mean, it doesn't, even someone with no ability in math and doesn't enjoy investments, this is not beyond you. I mean, otherwise you have to ask yourself, what are you doing working every day? Well, people say, well, I mean, I'm working to make money and have a better life and do things that I enjoy, and over time work less and do things with the people I love. Okay, great. So you're the captain of the ship, and now's the time to think, where's this thing going? So I mean, that's really the next step. And when you put this thing down, you want to have a level of knowledge to say, okay, I can do this. I need to think about where I'm headed and what I'm doing. And it's very easy. I mean, people are afraid to do this for some strange reason. I mean, you would never start driving to go on a vacation with no idea where you're going. And it takes a matter of minutes to punch in the coordinates and get a map, and then you put the music on and windows down and head out. So that's what we're going to show people, that it's easy to do. Now, the people that do that end up in a far better situation than the people that don't. It's amazing. Over time, and today it seems like something you don't want to do. You fast forward 10 years, I mean, you are light years ahead of people that refuse to think about these things.
Okay. Well, I think we can leave it there unless there's anything else you want to add about the book. What do you think?
Well, that's it. It's available on Amazon. It's in Kindle, softback edition, and there's an audible.com edition coming out next week. And Why Gold, Why Now is the title. It's The War Against Your Wealth and How to Win It by E.B. Tucker. And I encourage everyone to check it out. And I hope you'll have me back, and we can you can test me on the predictions that we make in the book and see how they turned out.
Let's see. Okay, thank you so much. Great to talk to you as always. Once again, I'm Charlotte McLeod with the Investing News Network, and this is E.B. Tucker.
Thanks so much.